Welcome to Plant Today with Amy Ray. Today's video is going to go from seed all the way to the garden. And here I'm going ahead and planting the seeds that I'm going to put inside under grow lights. This is late January and I've labeled all the pots, and this is a combination of tomatoes, peppers, and broccoli. If you check out my seed starting video and how to plan your garden, you'll see I use this planting calendar quite often because it breaks it down into many different plants, and also breaks it down by like varieties and whether or not you're doing seeds versus transplants. So I really like the way that this is broken down. It is zone 8B and 9A. I am 9A, so I use this quite often. So I take this, figure out what I need to be planting inside or outside in January and February, go through with what seeds I do have, and plan out what I'm going to go ahead and start planting and what I need to buy. Here I am in my laundry room where I have my grow lights set up. This is an IKEA bookcase, and I just use these little hooks that I screwed right into the wood. Let's see if I can get underneath here. So as you can see, I just literally screwed them right into the wood, and I measured to make sure I got the right size lights that would fit. I mean, they hang out a bit, but I'm not too worried about it. And these all connect into each other and then into one plug. So I only have to plug one thing in, and then they all connect to each other. I have this connected to an Alexa plug that I set on a timer for 16 hours a day. And I will link these lights. They're just from Amazon. Very easy LED grow lights. So now I'm setting up the pans, and I realized they need to be a lot closer to the light. So I could technically use some chains and lower the lights, but this is way easier at the moment. So I just find something that's the right size that I can put the tray on top of. And here I'm realizing the cups, the plastic cups, are taller than the other pots, so they're keeping my dome open, and I need to keep it closed for the humidity. So I took the peppers out, which were in the plastic cups, and I got them their own tray, but they needed little domes, so I gave them each a plastic bag for their own little dome, and now they're close to the light. You want to keep them as close as possible, ideally 2 inches once they sprout, 2 inches away from the light. So you just have to keep moving them based on the size of the plants. Here we are 6 days later, and I moved all the broccoli over to this tray to be out of the dome because it sprouted literally within two days, I think, 3 days, and 2 days, I guess. So I moved it over here, and then just now I came in with my scissors, and pretty much I got almost 100% germination in these pots because I planted 4 seeds in each of these pots, and I almost got it. So I went in and trimmed back to only 2 in 1, or sometimes only 1. It's so hard for me. That's the hardest part of seed starting, is then having to like kill the seeds that made it. So it's like you don't want to overseed because it's really hard to cut them once they're grown, but at the same time, you know that they're not going to grow properly if you leave too many in there. So like I left this guy and this guy because they're kind of far apart, so I could technically, separate them relatively easily. Like in this pot, I only left one, and then I left 2 in that one. Anyway, they're doing great. The bell peppers, I put just plastic bags over those because they weren't fitting under the dome too well, but there's no germination yet on bell peppers. They take the longest. Then we come over here to the tomatoes. There we go. So we got germination on a lot of those little tomatoes. So these are the Romas. Sorry, these are the Roma tomatoes right here. The cherry tomatoes have not. The ones that were back here have not sprouted yet. So I'm keeping the dome on just for now because there's still some that are working on coming up. So as you can see, the dome stays nice and humid. I've only watered these once with my spray bottle. I just went in and spritzed the top of them on probably day 3. Here we are on day 6, and I'm not gonna do it today. Like, I can still see moisture on the bottom. The soil does not look dry, so these are fine. Now the broccoli, past 2 mornings, I think I had skipped one day before that, I come in and I spray them because, so for instance, let me get in here. So this soil is dry, okay? That's what the whole thing looks like in the morning when I get up. So I come in and with my spray bottle, I'm really just spraying where the roots are, okay? That's just a me thing because I tend to get mold pretty quickly in here until I get my fan going, which I'm planning to set up today to get my fan going. But even when my fan's going, sometimes I tend to get mold on the soil. So I have to be really careful with how wet I keep things. So for me, I feel like if I just keep the soil around the little seedlings wet and not try to like moisten all of it, when they're bigger, I will bottom water when they're ready to be like transplanted or started to harden out outside. But right now when they're tiny like this, they can't soak up the bottom water unless I really soak the whole pot. So it's kind of unnecessary, and then everything's just so wet. So anywho, they're doing great. This is 2 weeks later. All the tomatoes are looking beautiful. As you can see, the peppers finally germinated. The broccoli is pretty big, and I'm starting the hardening process there. This is another week later, and they're getting close to full sun there. Now we are ready to plant them out. So I'm planting the broccoli here. I needed a little extra soil, and all I had was fruit, berry, and citrus mix from Heirloom Soils. So I'm using that. I don't think the broccoli will mind. Quick note about the broccoli, I'm planting broccoli for the flowers, not for the heads of broccoli. It's way too hot here for broccoli right now. Next up are the cherry tomatoes, and I'm going to do the Florida weave method with my trellising system. So I'm going to put, I think these are 7-foot poles on either side, and then I plant the cherry tomatoes in a straight line about a foot apart. So I'm just using my shovel to kind of measure in between, and I think I got 7 plants in here, which was awesome. Next, I'm going to water them in with a liquid fertilizer. I'm using MicroLife Ocean Harvest liquid fertilizer. And then I'm going to kind of reset up my drip tube system here, make sure they are getting good moisture. Went back to the other bed. I planted my Roma tomatoes on that back row. And here I need to fix my drip system. I needed to add another dripper to my muscadine plant back there. So I fixed that, reset up the drip along those tomatoes, the Roma tomatoes. I don't know if I'll do the Florida weave here. I'll have to decide that later. All right, guys, I'm all done. That was really fun. Going from tiny seed to actually getting transplants in the ground, it just feels amazing. And it's something that it sounds daunting at first, like if you've never grown from seed before, but once you do it and you see the outcome and the fruit of your labor, like literally, it's worth it. Worth the time, worth the effort, and the cost is less. So let's just take an overview. Quick warning, I have to protect my plants from my cats. So take a look. I have to put anything I can find, trellises, etc., on top, because until it's all planted up and it's not an enticing litter box, my cats will use it. So if there's anything in it at all, they really won't jump up there. See, like, yep, you're the turd. She's the turd that does it, mostly, and then she taught my other cat to do it. Look at that sunset, y'all. Anyway, so I have 7 Roma tomatoes planted here and 7 of the cherry tomatoes planted there, all a foot apart, and I'm going to be using these green, I think they're 7-foot tall poles to do the Florida weave method. I've done that with success in the past. So you just basically line them up in a straight line. I don't have my poles here, but you'll have a pole on either side, and you weave your string through to hold them all up. So I'll be doing that, and I'll show you that process as I go. But everything, all the tomatoes, well, I say all, but not all. I have all the cherry tomatoes planted. I have ended up with 2 left. So I think I might just pot those separately and give those away to friends. And then what's left is the Cherokee purple tomatoes. I have 3 of those. This one has an extra little seedling in there. I'm not sure if I'll try to plant him or not. So those will be next. And then I have ended up with 7 germinated pepper plants. Only 1 came up in this one, but 6 here. So I don't need 7 pepper plants. I'll probably plant 4 maybe. I don't know. If I have space to plant all 7, I will. Because with the Florida weave method, I have all this outer space temporarily. Like once the plants grow up and you weave them, then you start pruning all the leaves off the bottom. So you still have a good airflow around the plants as well. So I could even get away with doing pepper plants on the outsides, but I'm thinking I'm going to do a lot of flowers this year. Basil goes well with tomatoes. Currently still have carrots planted here and some beets and kale, but kale's slow going. It's been warmer than usual, but it did all sprout. Beets sprouted, got some weeds as usual. Carrots are from last year. That's lettuce that seeded itself from last season. I planted a little nasturtium here. And so, anywho, that's everything from the seeds that I planted first round. My second round of seeds, I have 3 different types of basil and flowers. So in this bed, I have strawberry plants, broccoli that that was the other thing that I had seeded. And those broccoli, I think I mentioned this before, I'm planting this for the flowers, not for the broccoli. It's too hot for broccoli, so it will bolt, but they send up the most beautiful flowers. So I'm doing that for the bees and for the view. Raspberry plants, doing good. So I'm going to be trellising those raspberry plants up in here. My muscadine, I need to prune that.
Look at blackberry.
I know, she's something else. Let's see. And then I got my whole area graveled. Didn't know if I had shown y'all that before. Here, blueberries, lettuce, nasturtiums, potatoes. I have Yukon Gold potatoes growing here. Then I got seed potatoes from Home Depot. And these are red Norland potatoes. And my blackberry, papaya. And then here, I just took this insect netting off recently. Again, this was to keep the bugs and stuff out. But this is onions and garlic. All of that's growing really well. So that's all for today. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, just let me know. Gosh, that sunset's so amazing. But I hope this, if anything, inspires you to go plant today.